Now entering Nerdist.com.
In like 2 weeks. I'm really excited, but it's not open yet. I was like, I really wish I could, because it's like a block, I was like, man, I really wish I could just go back to the office right now and work. I had to go all the way home and come back.
Boo.
But I did it for you, buddy.
I really appreciate that, Ryan Buck. Are everyone's phones off?
No.
I'm not hearing
but
any.
How are we going to get
any
Wi-Fi?
interference. What?
Do you actually have any Wi-Fi here?
I do. I do on my laptop, yeah.
But I mean, it's like, are we able to access it?
I don't know. It's, if you want to, you can charge it to my room. I don't care. Like, if you have to log on.
Well, I don't have to. I just wanted to have, like, the numbers in front of me and stuff.
If you want to log on, you can just log on and just put my last name and room number on there. And
usually that'll do the trick.
I don't mind. I don't mind.
It's just under Hardwick?
Yes, it is.
No assumed names yet.
No.
Jacques Awesome.
Well, now it's going to be Jacques Awesome.
Mr. Awesome. Phone call for Mr. Jacques Awesome.
And that's me, everyone.
Excuse me, this is embarrassing how this happens all the time.
Jacques Awesome. All right, so I am here in my hotel room in a sexy situation. To my left is Ryan Block from Gadget.com, Mark McCluskey from Wired.com, Jason Chen from Gizmodo, who you might know from trending on your Twitter. But I just want to get this out of the way. We're not here to talk about Jason's experience with Apple. We are going to avoid that today. This is not about that. This is not about all the questions.
So
I'm sure
all my shtick is just right
it's killed. It's not. We're not covering that today.
I'm just disappointed that you didn't mention anyone in the room is not wearing pants.
Well, I think people will hear that when they hear the skin rubbing together in the middle of the. Here we go. Okay, so I'm online. Okay, we're good. This is just mainly to. I wanted to do a bonus episode of the podcast specifically for Apple Files, so we could really just kind of go through and give everyone the rundown of what we saw today at WWDC, what your guys' impressions were. I personally was kind of happy with today. I feel like I've been to a lot of these and left sort of disappointed, where whoever was speaking, whether it was Steve or Phil Schiller, I sort of felt like, they're kind of manufacturing their excitement because they know that this is not, you can't revolutionize the thing every year. But this year, I feel like I got a lot of stuff that I wanted to see. Not everything, but a lot of stuff. So what do you think, Ryan?
Last year with the 3GS, I felt like I could kind of take it or leave it. It just wasn't that exciting to me. It was like the same iPhone. It was a little bit faster. I use one, but it didn't blow my mind. Didn't really feel like that important of a step forward. Didn't feel like the step forward between the first iPhone to the iPhone 3G. Mm-hmm. That felt very significant for a lot of reasons. Not just, the 3G. Price was a big one, international release, all that stuff.
Trying to break free a little bit from Edge, the Edge anchor.
And that's a whole other topic. But this one felt like a pretty major step forward, even if, we already knew a lot about it. Thank you, Jason.
You're welcome.
No, I don't know what you're talking about. We're not here to talk about. I don't know what we're not.
Well, we can't pretend like that never happened, and they couldn't pretend like that never happened.
Right.
The only thing they could do was try to tell the story that we didn't know.
Right.
And I think they actually did a pretty good job of doing that, considering how much. We knew more about what Apple was going to announce today than I think anyone has ever known about any big Apple product announcement since Steve Jobs had been back in the late 90s.
I have to say, and I'm sure this is not. I don't know if this is something Steve Jobs would want to hear, but just kind of having some idea of what I was going to see today made me more excited about coming, because I didn't feel like, well, I don't know, I see some rumors and I see some other stuff that could be false and, could be planned. I don't know what I'm going to see. I felt like I have an idea of what I'm going to see. I want to see how he justifies that. I want to see, if that was the fourth generation iPhone and what all those bells and whistles do. And so I was very excited coming into it.
Yeah, Apple has such an expectation game issue that they play with every one of these at this point. It's like, unless you deliver, like, the greatest single object ever created by mankind. Like there's only so far you can ratchet up the rhetoric around all this
and
stuff.
let's be fair. They are always all the greatest objects mankind has ever seen.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
And people are still spoiled. They're like, yeah, but it doesn't do this one thing. You can edit HD video on it. Well, I don't care. You would have cared about that last year.
I mean, it's like that video at the end that they showed today, which is just like Apple at its like absolute most grandiose, messianic worst, right? Just like, this is changing everything about everything. It's like, it's really, you'll never experience life the same way again. It's like, how many things can you honestly really say that about that have ever been created by man? 15?
Well, there was the
20?
car, and then some other stuff happened, and then this
interwebs.
phone, and then
No,
this
the
phone,
interwebs.
and then the interwebs.
Hey, iPad.
And then the iPad, MTV singled out, and then and then the iPad. In between those two things, not really a lot. What? Schwa?
Not me.
What is that?
Oh, maybe it is me.
Oh, it might be.
Sorry, I thought I turned it on.
No, that's okay. That's a pretty sweet. That's a pretty sweet.
Well, it was interesting on my part, actually not being there. Felt like I was outside of the reality distortion field for once. In the past 4 years, I've been, at all these, and I felt like I could kind of see the seams,
You can see the cracks.
the cracks of his presentation, and see him try to talk up stuff like that screen, which is already on other phones, that high resolution screen, or say video chat, which is Nokia has been doing that for years. Android has that, that kind of stuff. Trying to say this is so revolutionary, so
Sirens.
so
They're coming to get you.
world-changing. Yeah,
I mean,
that I kind of
Yeah, it's
saw it
interesting
for
you
what
say
it
that because
was.
we talked a little bit before Mark and Ryan got here, Jason, and you said, Steve kind of got freaked out about the Wi-Fi thing. To be there live, I didn't feel like it was such a freak out. I mean, like, obviously it was a problem, but I feel like you would probably see it more when you're just seeing him on your screen at home as opposed to being there
Yeah,
live.
exactly.
I don't know, it felt pretty angsty to me live.
Did you really?
Yeah. I mean, him, but then especially, like, every Apple employee ever, like, skittering around trying to get people to, like...
I just feel like...
that actually happened too. I mean, Mark and I were talking about this on the elevator over. Elevator up. They were actually coming over to people in the audience, in the media section too, which blows my mind, that they would actually go to the media section for this. And we're telling people, shut down your laptop, turn off all your stuff. And we were basically like, no. What are you going to do?
I saw what you were writing.
me out?
It read, and it sounded really awkward, and it sounded.
No, it was super.
sounded
It was.
totally-
I've never seen anything like that.
I did
before.
have to, like, they came over to look at my iPad because I was live tweeting from the iPad, and I was like, look, 3G. I'm on 3G. I'm not on Wi-Fi right now. I'm on 3G, which was a miracle in itself that I was actually able to get reception inside Moscone West because I never have.
That's
before.
actually the most miraculous product of the day. is your ability to live tweet over
I know.
3G.
it worked somehow.
I will say that as far as the presentation went, I mean, they had a lot of expectations for this, but given the fact that the stuff had leaked and the Wi-Fi difficulties, I mean, if you were going to, look for the seams and the cracks in a jobs note, this was the one to find them. I mean, this was just, it was rife with issues that were going on. It was just like all the rest. Yeah, like you said, it was very grandiose, and it was maybe a little bit too aggressive in some of the messaging. But I mean, it's it's just like par for the course at this point.
I mean, compared to
it's
the
like I
previous
expect
one,
nothing less.
It's kind of the best one since the first one, isn't it? They had the most new features that he could actually pull out and say this is a new feature, rather than trying to talk up some.
I mean, besides
crap
like the software stuff, though. Because the
Besides the
software is like
software
where all
stuff,
the features have really been.
right.
Well, I was actually surprised that when Jobs said, "What should I do here?" Steve, Ted, or whoever he was talking to,
Scott Forrester.
Oh, Scott Forrester.
Yeah.
What should I do here, Scott? And someone in the audience goes, "Go to Verizon." And I was like, well, that guy's going to get yanked out by the scruff. There's going to be like some sort of a claw machine is going to reach down and then just pull him into the ether.
Drops him into, like, the Google
But
I/O conference.
yeah, exactly. But that didn't seem to happen.
That was a good comparison to make. That Steve Jobs asked everybody to turn off Wi-Fi, whereas the Google I/O conference had the same problem, but they kind of asked nicely and didn't kind of throw the hammer down and say, "You must all put down your laptops and turn off your Wi-Fi's, or I'm not going to go on. I'm taking my ball and going backstage or whatever."
I mean, the idea that I'm sitting 150 feet away from him with a MiFi, right, which has an effective radius of like 20 feet on a good day,
Yeah.
and that this is somehow having a material effect on his presentation is
But the Wi-Fi did work better when everyone shut everything down. I just think I've always had Wi-Fi issues in that hall. This was actually the first year that I was able to get on to the network and have it work. In previous years, I would say, I'm going to live tweet, and then I was not able to every time because I couldn't get onto the network.
Because you didn't do your homework. You didn't prepare like these guys do, like we do, right? You got to bring 7 connections and a runner
We've got
with a long cable.
Hazing the noob. I get it. I've only been to 3 WWDCs. I don't know how this shit works yet. I guess the whole time I had I had a performer's perspective watching him, which is I probably would do the same thing. I mean, get a little bit kind of chastisey with the audience, but I can understand how I actually probably would have gone into some sort of swear fury, like motherfucker, it's fucking, I would have tried to beat my device up.
That probably would have been better.
That would have been awesome.
Yeah.
If he'd have done that, I would have obliged him. If he'd have been like, look, you fuckers.
He just fucking throws the 4G on the phone and be like, this one doesn't work, crank.
Yeah, I might have. Out of fear.
But, they certainly can't be surprised that 500 and some people are going to be there or whatever it was. So, why was there not a robust network in place?
I think this is a new issue, though. I mean, just as of last year, I don't think that you would have expected to see so many portable APs or, phones that just in the last 3 to 4 months have started coming bundled with Wi-Fi AP software.
Android.
Yeah, Android, Palm OS.
iPhones.
I mean, WebOS.
Yeah.
It's kind of a newer thing.
And so, for your MiFi, what is that? Does that tether 8 people to your network?
Something like that. I mean,
it was 5.
There were 2 of us on there. Yeah, I think it's 5.
Okay. 5.
Yeah, there were. So.
Yeah, he the whole time. I was imagining though that there must have been some sort of seething rage underneath, and I kept thinking, I wonder who's going to be holding their head in their own hands afterwards. Like, someone probably just quit at that point. They were probably just like, well, that's the end of me, and just called their wife and said, that envelope I taped under the bed? Take that. There's cash in there. Well,
there's the ritual suicide, right? I mean, at that point, you've dishonored the company, and their demo has failed.
So as it actually happens, the company didn't set up the Wi-Fi network. I actually know the people who did set it up, and they don't work for Apple. They're a networking company. And the thing was, it ultimately wasn't their fault. I mean, they're the same people who did the last TechCrunch 50 conference, which was I think 6,000 people or something in that giant hall down in Soma, and it worked perfectly. Right. So it wasn't. I don't think it was a network issue. I think it was just saturation of wireless over the airwaves.
RF interference. Right?
Yeah, I mean you can it's like Spectrum. You can literally only fit so many data connections on a single band of spectrum. Right. It's just that it's the laws of physics. You can't do more than it's not infinite just because it's wireless. And I think that's ultimately what it came down to. But it's funny that this is this is the story and not the phone, right? Like the weirdness of the keynote was.
Well, I mean, but you're always going to gravitate to weirdness and awkwardness first before anything else, because that's those are the sort of anomalous moments that kind of stand out rather than when everything goes smoothly. Personally, I think those moments are better in some cases, or at least just as valuable as the moments when everything work, because those moments are humanizing, and those moments create more of a shared experience. Like, hey, something fucked up, just like happens in life. You've all been there. Let's all just get past it, So I don't mind it that much.
I'm kind of bummed out that you haven't asked me to shut off my iPad yet. Would you shut it off?
Could you please shut off your iPad? I can't finish this podcast until you shut off your iPad.
Your demo of FaceTime is going to fail because of the Wi-Fi. And then
yes, FaceTime.
That was one of the disappointments, that you couldn't do FaceTime to PCs. I mean, right? or just have iChat mobile or something.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess they haven't really talked about how they're going to integrate it to iChat. I mean,
or is it going to be integrated?
What I didn't understand is how you actually make the call. Because if there's no setup and it doesn't use a phone network, then what does it use? How do I know you with FaceTime? What is the network that identifies you as another user?
When he made that call to Johnny, right, he made a cellular call, and then there's a FaceTime button where it's keypad, that sort of secondary interface screen. There was a FaceTime button, I think, to be in that instance, but like how the hell does that handoff?
I think we should only use that feature if when someone calls you, you answer the phone by going FaceTime, like in a real
FaceTime.
bro kind of way. FaceTime. You guys want to
looking for FaceTime with McCluskey?
That's a FaceTime.
Awesome. Yeah.
We're just going to be looking at your balls, McCluskey. All right.
Oh man, so
Ball time.
Ball time.
Literally, it actually took less than 15 seconds for the guy next to me to be sex call. And I was like, are you kidding me, dude? It literally has been has not even been 30 seconds since.
I would like to get high and mighty about the retardosity of that. I instantly tweeted, "Thank God, I'm tired of masturbating in front of my phone to no one." So
Mine with sexting is now obsolete.
So now I know when Chris calls late at night. Absolutely, under no circumstances should I pick up the phone.
just make sure that you
Just
know
pick
that
it up
I
with the 3GS.
just be like this. Let me see your other hand. Like, just make sure that everything is above board. That's the only thing. When we FaceTime, when I call you, because obviously we have to have we have to have a 4th gen iPhone to do that. You can't, like you said, you can't do it to PC.
Right.
So in a way, it's either maybe they're just trying to test to see how it works before they integrate it into iChat, or
Fucking buy it.
or you
But
have
there
to
was
buy
like-
it. You have to buy it.
There was that one of those little like Apple throwaways too. It's like by the end of the year there'll be tens of millions of FaceTime devices. Like, so either they think they're going to sell a ton of iPhone 4s, or iPad 2 will be fully FaceTime.
FaceTime.
First of all, we do have to say FaceTime.
FaceTime. I would be happy if FaceTime had some sort of a max headroom theme that you could just call people and be like, FaceTime.
All stuttery.
Yep, exactly. All crappy looking. I was excited about the prospect of FaceTime, but then I was like, well, who am I going to be FaceTiming? Because I don't know if any of my friends are going to rush out. Like, none of my comic friends are going to rush out.
Hey man, I would FaceTime with you.
Would you FaceTime me?
I would totally FaceTime.
Jason, I really
Just not
appreciate
after
that.
9 p.m.
I would...
Not on the weekends.
Listen, I'm a day FaceTimer. I don't like to FaceTime at night. That's just me time.
It's Jason time.
That's Jason time. That's Jen time.
Don't
It's
screw
not-
with Jason time.
It's not FaceTime. By the way, who's the little girl that is in every fucking ad where I'm like, all right, whose daughter are you? Like, there's one little girl that she's in every picture, video, like every demonstration of any photo app is like that little girl's face. I'm like, you clearly are someone's daughter.
In like the ethnically correct group of friends that appears in every Apple demo. Here we are in San Francisco on our vacation. How did we all end up here? I want to see that sitcom. I want to see the sitcom that's the people.
Apple Friends?
Apple Friends. All their FaceTime.
Oh my god, that would be amazing. Apple Friends would be amazing. Because there is like a stable of people.
No, it's just like this perfect like microcosm of America boiled down to like four friends having wholesome fun all over the the
Well,
Here we are in Calistoga. Here we are in San
they
Francisco.
can't
we were
mash
in
their
Madrid.
balls together. What do you want them to do, Mark?
Can't they, Chris?
They can't.
Just shows a lack of commitment.
They can't garbage bag where they set the balls together and then tie the wieners around each other in a twisty tie fashion. They can't do that.
No
Mark.
Arabian goggles.
There's
This isn't Google here.
well, this is going off the rails in a delightful way. Was there anything that you guys were excited with, like genuinely like, oh, that is really neato?
I mean, I kind of nerded out on iMovie, which is totally the wrong tool for the job, probably, but just editing video on my cell phone, like, that's silly.
Yeah.
That is just, like, silly that I can now potentially do that.
Yeah.
I mean, just to have that level of processing power, I was sort of like, okay, that's
I mean, it's pretty
ridiculous.
crazy when you think about it, because until just very recently, editing movies on your PC was like not even a thing, right?
Yeah.
Like Windows XP, has been around for many, many years, and there's no decent out-of-the-box Windows editing solution for that, like Movie Maker.
Bill
I mean,
Gates
it's
notoriously
garbage.
said, "What the fuck do I do? How do I download this Windows Movie Maker?"
Yeah, and the same for Vista too. I mean, it was only marginally better in Vista, it was a little bit better, but I mean, and it's funny because when you're talking about these products and you wind up inevitably comparing them to something else, and you always got to check yourself for the fanboyism, right? Like make sure it doesn't come off. But I mean, in a certain way. But I mean, this mobile iMovie app is way better than most desktop movie editing software, which is really weird to think that way. I mean, it's just the way seeing that demo and how nicely it works and how much they were able to do in such a small amount of space.
Yeah.
Really crazy.
Why do you think people are so? What is it that Here's an example. I said I was going to do this podcast, this episode devoted to WWDC, and some people got mad. And so my kind of thought was, why is it wrong in a lot of people's eyes to like Apple, or if you say anything good about it, they're like, fuck you, you're just attached to Steve Jobs' cock or whatever. Like, why is it not okay to like Apple in some people's eyes? I mean, because Apple doesn't give me or most people anything. I get nothing from them. As a matter of fact, they're very stingy with giving out stuff, and they won't do it to most people. Like, I don't get anything.
Nor do we.
Joel McHale got an iPhone last year. They just fucking sent him one.
Jason gets all this stuff from Apple. It's amazing.
They love me.
they get stuff he gets from him all the time.
Yeah, you got the iPhone 4 earlier. I wonder, like, what is it about that? What is it about Apple specifically that if you say anything good about them, there's a demographic of people who are just like, fuck you, man, you're shilling for the man.
They're just so divisive, right? They have this singular vision where if you follow it, you love it. Mm-hmm. Like, this is what you love. If you kind of deviate from it, you're an outcast.
It's also, right? I mean, you can get all philosophical about Apple, which, if Apple is a company that appeals to people generally like us, people who write and people who create digital things and media, what Apple's better at than anybody else still is just sort of a singular focus on like, this tool does this thing, and if it's what you want it to do, it's awesome because it's sort of an experience that's curated and thought about and really obsessed over to a level that nobody else has gotten to yet. It doesn't do everything, and so sort of I think people who are more drawn to the Windows outlook on life are like, well, can you do this? Can you do this? It's like, no, but I don't care about having, back to the Movie Maker thing. It's like the Windows way is you actually have 3 or 4 programs on there that all make shitty movies, right? There's, you can use Movie Maker, or you can download this, you can buy this. It's like, and Apple's just like, no, we kind of do one thing, and we think about it really hard.
I think you could probably do like an hour on why Apple is so even to this day. I mean, it was funny, back in the early days of Engadget, that was like when I'd never really written to an audience about technology before, and in 2004, and I was shocked in 2004 that it was still a thing, that it was still Mac versus PC. I couldn't believe it then. I was like, really? We're not over this shit yet? I mean, like, it's 2004. Like, who cares? I care a lot about technology. Obviously, I'm doing this, but like, really, I couldn't believe it. I would say this though, and it's kind of unrelated. There's this story on this site, You Are Not Smart, which is the words you are not so smart. .wordpress.com, or actually no, just youarenotsosmart.com, and the post is called Fanboyism and Brand Loyalty, and it's this like really interesting in-depth piece about the cognitive origins of what we think of as fanboyism. And without getting too much into it, I would actually encourage people to just go read it. It really gets into how brand identity and intertwines with your self-reflexivity, your self-identity.
Sure.
And I think Apple's obviously a big part. I mean, Apple's, I think inspired the post, but it's not just about Apple.
Well, I mean, I don't think there's any question that brands are sort of the religions of our time. There's sort of ideas that people align themselves with. So I don't think that's, I totally... Is that part of what the article says? Well,
yeah, it definitely gets it. It doesn't touch on religion as much, but you can see how some of those, like the way that those particular centers of the brain kind of correlate to religious fervor and religious fanaticism, and just kind of mental switching costs of once you become invested in something so much that it becomes harder for you to walk away from it, because whether you realize it or not, you're already there. If you're an Apple fanboy, like, you don't want to become something else, because it's just so hard to realign your identity to be that, which is weird because I know a lot of people don't think of themselves that way, but there are a lot of people who do identify themselves based on brands like that. And It's very, very strange to me.
It's like when my wife came home with Skippy peanut butter one time. I freaked out.
Because you're a GIF guy.
I'm a GIF guy. We
Yeah.
were a GIF household growing up. Yeah.
This is a fucking GIF household.
Yeah. So
Get out!
we sorted it out. So.
You just throw the peanut butter.
By throwing it out the window.
It was a big mess.
You take that bullshit and get out of my house. I don't work hard all day,
All day
slaving in front of
Skippy.
Mr. Spacely's computer at Wired.
My children aren't going to eat this Skippy.
This Skippy crap. The name alone is loathsome.
Next thing you're gonna come in with Peter Pan.
Ridiculous. So FaceTime, we covered the Retina display. I think the display is gorgeous. I thought it looked really cool when I played around with the phone. I wanted to kind of get a better look at images and video and web text and pinching zooming, but I didn't. There was a line, so I didn't have too much time to play with it. But did you get to play with it a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great looking screen. I mean, the pixels are relatively invisible. I mean, you really got to be right up. This is a good gesture for podcast, right?
Is Retina display a thing, or is that just
No,
a brand name
that's-
that
that's
they
Steve
made
Jobs
up?
thing that he
It is.
That's
That's like scope with T25, right? Like
Yeah.
that's T25. I should know what that is, right? That's a thing.
You don't know about
makes
that?
my teeth.
Yeah.
When they put it up on the screen, I was like, oh my god, they've finally done
The
it.
retinal scan.
Yeah.
I thought the same thing.
I was like, oh Jesus. I have to go burn my retinas the way that they burn your fingertips in Men in Black.
They're gonna know everything about what's inside my head.
Yeah.
So they can do
More so.
a little bit more so.
Yeah.
So I thought that.
And the camera seems pretty interesting too, with the pixels at the same size as the sensor.
Yeah.
Right? That 5 megapixel. It's hard to tell from just looking at it how good that camera actually is.
Well, you know what I really loved about the demo, though, or the demos?
Right.
He kept going on and on about, like, oh, it's all about capturing photons. It's all about low light.
Right.
Camera phones are such bad low light, and this is all about, like, making better low light photography because that's, where the majority of photography takes place and blah, blah, blah. And they didn't show a single low light photograph.
Well,
Yes.
because it's still gonna, a great low light picture still is not.
shitty.
You blow it up to 25
it's just
feet
like,
high on your
that's-
Moscone screen.
that's-
your special projector.
That's fine. That's totally fine. But, I mean, if you're going to sit there and talk it up,
No, totally.
bring it, right? Show it. I don't know. The screen was amazing, though. The screen was
I think you should have stood up
unbelievable.
and said that in the presentation. If you're going to talk about that, you should bring it.
Point of information.
FaceTime.
we can hop on FaceTime later with Steve.
Did I tell the story yet about how when I was standing with Ryan Block interviewing him for Attack of the Show, Steve Jobs breezed right by, like close enough to pinch. I could have just reached out and pinched him, and I didn't know what else to say because I'm weird around really famous people. So I was just like, "Awesome job up there!" Like he needed my validation. And he did not make eye contact. He just went, "Thanks." Like he just kept, like he almost spat it out before I finished my sentence. My point is,
You're like, oh, thanks.
my point is, in the movie in my head, we were going to be buds and fly
He's
around
totally-
on a private jet and solve crimes. But
He's totally calling you up, like, Chris, we're thinking about putting this in the next one. What do you think, man?
well, Steve, I'm so glad you called, man, and I'm so glad that I went out of my way to say,
It's so
awesome
good to see your
job."
face.
Yeah.
I've got so many ideas.
FaceTime.
I've got so many ideas. Fins. V6.
It did not work out that way so well for me. Have you interviewed him? Have you guys talked to him at all?
God, no.
No.
I mean, I've talked to him before, but I've thought about this before. I don't know if you guys have. If I were given the opportunity to interview him, would I actually do it? Because you don't have to, right? I mean, like I think most professional journalists feel like there would be an obligation to. I'm not sure that I would want to. He's so belligerent with journalists.
Is he really? I feel like I would want to have him on because my interest in him is more about his process. Like I feel like there's certainly a legacy of devices and that he leaves behind, but I feel like just the way that he problem solves and approaches stuff, and just kind of I'm curious to know what goes on inside his head. I want to know what questions he asks. When he decides to take on a new market. Whether it's like Pixar or whatever, anything. I just want to know what his process is. That's what's fascinating to me about him.
But he doesn't really talk about those things. Even when he is interviewed by like Walt and Kara at the D conference, which is about the most open I think you will ever see him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even in like in-depth profiles where some magazines do get access to him, it's never, you don't see as much of his personality as I think you do when he goes on stage, partly because he's on stage and not in a room with a journalist locked away.
Do you think that's because his PR says, you can't ask about this, you can't ask about that, you can only talk about this, this, and that?
I mean,
It's certainly possible, yeah. I mean, I think Walt is one of the few people he probably thinks he can't push around, and who he respects enough to just, say, like, all right, let's do this. And, I mean, Walt asks him, I think, a lot of questions that most other journalists probably wouldn't.
Right.
Not because they wouldn't want to, but
because of the consequences of that.
Exactly.
If you didn't care about the consequences, if that was your last interview in this profession,
I have
you could be
a
self-freeing.
list of wonderful things I would do if I never cared about working anywhere ever again. Wonderful things. But
wonderful, illegal.
And at the top of that list, invite a bunch of high-profile bloggers to your hotel room to record a podcast with no pants.
Ryan, stop smacking against my pantsless frame. I don't even know if
Where's
where's
the Foley artist is really not.
That's a problem with I don't have a budget yet to travel with a Foley artist, and I would really.
How awesome would that be? Just there's a guy following you around doing sound effects,
and he's 11. He's like
I know he's
been
like older
doing
than Moses. He's got
he did Foley for Gracie and Allen. Like,
he's got like a wheelbarrow full
Yeah.
of like nails and
you look at it, you look at his old leather case, and you're like, what's he gonna do with all that shit? And it's the most amazing Foley you've ever heard in your entire life. Like,
see, I'd watch that show too.
that would be a really good show.
Is that?
Well, someday if we ever turn this into a video podcast, which I hope we never do. Multitasking was something else that people have been... And again, another thing that, is something that people were asking for, but still I think a lot of people are going to be like, "Ooh, you should have had that already," or, "Yeah, but it's not whatever else they're upset about." I thought I'm very happy to have multitasking now, because I want to listen to Pandora and then fuck around on other apps.
But does anybody want anything other than that one exact thing? I mean, to me, like...
Switching back and forth between apps without going back to the home screen is...
I guess.
is
I mean...
useful, right?
That was almost more useful than the actual multitasking itself, right? Just
Yeah.
like the fast app switching, getting from point A to point B faster.
I just feel like... So the multitasking and the folder thing, I feel like, are oddly not up to the usual standard of Apple's software design.
Why is it only one row?
Do you have... Well, yeah, that's a good point. Have you been using it? Like, do you have OS 4 on
I've
your
been
phone?
using it on one of my phones,
Yeah. I mean, I've heard a few people say that. I don't necessarily know if I agree. I mean, I've heard people say that they feel like it was tacked on.
It just feels, even down to, and this is like, I mean, imagine having this discussion about any other company, but like, the default wallpaper is like, there's just something inelegant about the presentation of now iOS 4, which I can't wait till Cisco, they must have worked out, one assumes they worked out a deal with Cisco before they did that.
Or maybe
Surprise! They're doing it again!
Yeah, or maybe
Oh.
after the iPhone, right?
Well, because
That
remember,
was Cisco too.
they didn't tell Cisco in advance that they were going to call it the iPhone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Which was great. And then they worked it out after the fact.
Yeah.
But
So
I
the
think-
pressure was on Cisco.
I think you're right. It is tacked on because they made this OS 3 years ago or 4 years ago or whatever, and it was this thing. And now they have to add a fifth wheel and add multitasking and add whatever. I think the metaphors are kind of strained to its
Maybe,
to
I
the
mean,
edge.
I don't know. I that's what I was saying. I've heard people say that. I've been using it since the day, they released, and I've been seeing how they
It's good. Don't
kind
get
of
me wrong.
fixed
Yeah,
it,
but it's not.
I actually feel like, and I thought a lot about how they would do multitasking because if you go back and you look at from iPhone, the very first iPhone, the very first version of iPhone OS, they, besides the openness of the App Store, every major complaint that anyone has ever had about the iPhone, they addressed. Systematically, 1 year after the next, every single thing, copy, paste, multitasking, apps, all that stuff. Everything that basically anybody, had a major complaint about, they've addressed. Exchange support, whatever, you name it. I mean, they've done actually a really good job of that. And in this case specifically, I've been thinking a lot about like how are they going to do what's that going to look like? How's that going to work? It didn't. I mean, I don't know. It didn't really feel too tacked on to me. It felt like it works pretty well. I do concede your point though that it's like it could have used a couple. Like if you got like 20 apps or whatever, maybe it like pulls up all of them or something. I don't know.
minor complaints.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like overall, I think it works pretty well.
I thought it was pretty cool. I'm just glad to have it, and I mean, like when I get it, I'm just glad that it's going to be available. You know, because of the very reason of just like launch, close, launch, close. I mean, it's funny. You know, I just did a podcast with Chris Anderson like an hour ago, and one of the questions I asked was, are we just fucking spoiled babies now? Because we get a lot of content for free, and also we're also used to major technological advances in really short amount of time. So like if you showed whatever complaints you have about the iPhone now, if you showed someone that phone even like 5 years ago, like they would shit themselves instantly. So are we just kind of spoiled?
When we all thought our Razr was hot shit.
Yeah, exactly. When I thought that Motorola clamshell phone that I had in like 99, 2000 that looked like a Star Trek communicator.
Yeah, but you're never going to be happy with it.
Yeah, are we in the habit of being perpetually unsatisfied?
But if we didn't feel that way, then there wouldn't be as much of a drive to create.
There would be no forward progress,
product.
right? You would just be okay. I'm satisfied.
Yeah, and I mean that's a metaphor for humanity, right? And that's like the other part of tech, which is like the optimism, which is maybe you're not satisfied with the tech, but you're always pushing. Yourself, you're pushing the boundaries and the limits of what this stuff can do.
Hey, I don't mind if people. I'm all for that. It's just like, hey, if you have complaints, go out and do something about it. I guess.
Make something.
Yeah, because we all have like $600 million to build a smartphone platform.
Well, no, but like I'm sure we all at least have 150 million apiece, right?
If we
could put
pull
that
it
together. Think of how much Jif peanut butter that would buy, Mark McCluskey.
Oh man.
You could buy out Skippy and just fucking dump him into the ocean.
Skippy is unavailable.
Yeah.
Now in the United States under this plan of yours.
Well, there was an Eggo shortage. There was an
Eggo shortage.
There was some weird Eggo shortage. I actually saw it on a news ticker like 6 months ago, and I'm like, is this really on CNN right now?
On like Stoner News? I mean, where were you?
No, it was.
No, I remember seeing that.
It was after Stoner News.
Yeah, see, I usually.
I'm confused.
You guys don't watch Waffle News? Follows the Waffle Report?
WaffleNews.com is pretty awesome.
That's pretty sweet. What other features did we see? The iBooks feature.
Gyro.
The gyroscope. Let me get to the gyroscope in a second, because I want to talk about the iBook feature and try to figure out why. I was very happy to hear that your iBooks will sync up across all your devices, like as far as what notes you make and bookmarks and where you are.
Just like the Kindle does right now.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, when are we going to see some type of... Because now that people have iPod Touches, an iPhone, I have 2 iMacs and a MacBook and an iPad. When can I start syncing up all of that stuff effortlessly instead of having to go in and manage each device?
When you pay Apple $100 a year for Mobile Me, and it'll work most of the time, but not all the time.
But
I was gonna have a similarly snarky answer, and that was going to be whenever Apple damn well feels like it.
That's true.
I mean, the non-snarky version of that is like there have been some people sort of rumbling like Apple should make Mobile Me free, and I think. Sync is actually incredibly hard to do. And that's why like apps like Dropbox are just like such like a sync app that just kind of works is sort of, if you know the computer science problem behind it, it's really astonishing. Google doesn't have that problem because they're just syncing to you've got basically one version of everything that lives in the cloud, and you just pull down something to your devices or computers. But if Apple's not going to go to sort of a cloud-based storage model, which we all keep waiting for them to on things like iTunes, but they haven't done yet. I think making Mobile Me free, especially when you get people in this ecosystem with 4, 5, 6 devices they're trying to keep in sync, would be a huge selling point for consumers.
Because what's kind of what I've noticed that's a little frustrating with the iPad is that you can't even in iTunes save. Like I would love to be able to save device profiles. Like, hey, here are all the apps I have on my iPhone. I just want to drag that profile onto my iPad so I don't have to go through and select each one all over again every time. Like each time. Like, do you foresee that at all? Anytime some sort of at least profile syncing?
I mean, iTunes is just groaning under the. iTunes has gone from a nice little music player to the hub of everything every piece of media you own and every device you're managing. I mean, it's
kind of funny they still call it iTunes. Like, it should be some other thing.
It's groaning under a lot of weight of accumulated development, and you can see it when you try and run it.
I don't want to shit on your point or anything, but I think you can do.
Why are your pants around your ankles?
Well, it was already off.
Okay.
But I think you can do a restore from your iPhone back up to your iPad.
No, you can do restores.
Right.
I think it would be nice if, like, hey, I got a few apps on this thing, and I would love to just kind of transfer the profile over to this other thing that I have that is also part of this ecosystem.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have to actually use Google for that today, and not Apple stuff, right? I mean, like, so I have my calendars on Google Calendars, which I use with Google's Exchange support. So I have, I don't use MobileMe, I don't even use Google Calendars, I use Exchange, Google's Exchange to Google Calendars in order to sync all my calendars across my devices, which seems really, really out of the way to get such a, simple thing done that you think should be, basically table stakes for everything.
Off topic of Apple for a sec, why is it so hard to find a fucking good to-do app, like a good task list manager? Because
on the portable devices or on the desktop?
Both. Like I had things, which is
just really
ridiculously overpriced.
Yeah,
like the fact that they charge like $20 for it on the iPad when you can't even sync it to the cloud is fucking unbelievable.
It's insulting.
And so then I moved to To-Do, and I was trying to sync that through Todoodle, but Todoodle has no desktop. Like, they have the exact opposite problem. They don't have a desktop version. So then it becomes kind of irritating.
Google has To-Dos.
Try Zenby.
Remember the milk?
It's a web app you can use. There's a I think there's an iPad. I know there's an iPhone app, and you can do it on your desktop.
Zenby?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's free.
I'll check that out.
I sucked it up and paid for things.
I paid for things too, and then I had a.
I love that sentence. Hey, I pay for things. I pay for things.
I pay for things.
I pay for nothing.
Speaking of paying for things, I think this iBooks and the PDF is gonna spur book piracy like crazy.
You think so?
That's cool.
I think.
No, I'm just kidding. But I mean,
that's a great idea. What?
No, but you think for Apple though, I mean, that's how Apple built the iPod business. The iPod came out
on the back of MP3s.
On the back of Napster specifically. The iPod came out almost in response to Napster at the time. There was no legitimate music download source. iTunes hadn't been purchased yet, let alone marketed as the solution for the iPod. Apple basically built the iPod to house, the very large MP3 collection that people were getting off of Napster and LimeWire and these other peer-to-peer networks at the time.
But, I mean, the only thing I see, and there are certainly obsessives out there, I mean, the thing you could do with a CD is get a piece of software that you put it in your computer and some indeterminate amount of time and relatively low hassle later, you got MP3s spit back out at you that you could get onto this thing. I mean, with video, ripping video is brutal and stupid and annoying and illegal depending on whose opinion you take. And books, sure, PDFs are a great way to trade books once somebody sits down and scans it.
Do you want my pirated copy of Hurt Locker? Oh, wait!
Oh, wait. You're in prison.
Oh, my God. The next sirens.
Catherine Bigelow is screaming somewhere.
That guy's gonna fucking ninja kick you in the throat.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't see Hurt Locker in the theater, because it's rare that I have a chance to go out to the movies.
Well, nobody did.
Exactly. now I kind of feel like, boy, I don't want to see it now because you're yelling at everyone. I'm sorry they stole your thing.
Yes, just like the MPA has been yelling at everybody for years. It's like, I think Jason's right that easier PDF access, and you can see this in the comic nerd world. I don't know if anybody here is a comic book geek, but so all the CBRs and CBZs, like people who have sat down with scanners and done really good scans of like every comic book Marvel has ever published. That's a market where there's such a gulf between the cost of acquiring the object and the value of the content. Mm-hmm. Like my copy of Amazing Fantasy 15, if I just want to read it, I don't need my mint copy sealed in Lexan and mounted on the wall. So I'm not sure where books are sort of going to fall on that gap.
Well, I think that's where it's going to. I think that's where it's going to be. That's where it's going to be. Apple or whatever app maker's responsibility to make apps that are robust enough and entertaining enough to use that it's better than because because I have this news rack app called Zenio, and so you can, it's basically just like kind of scanned versions of magazines, but it's different than like the Wired app, which is like you can go into it and play media, and like for me it's a more fun experience than just like skimming through scanned pages. So I think maybe that's where some of it's going to just fall on the responsibility of people making these types of apps to make them fun and interesting to use. So you don't want to just look at a PDF version of a book, if you don't have to.
Right.
Obviously, if you're homeless with your iPhone, it's all you can afford. It's just a PDF.
Your black market PDF.
That's
copy
right.
Of like Finnegan's Wake.
Overall, the WWDC experience, was it fun for you, Ryan, or were you just sort of like meh?
It's work. It's work.
It is work.
I don't know. It's fun. It's work. I mean, there's an expectation, I think, for most people that you kind of treat it like a privilege, and I guess in a way it is because not everybody gets invited. And I'm not. That's not like a.
You're looking at me.
Not a jab at you.
Oh damn!
I mean, obviously, Gizmodo
Snap.
has been invited for the history of Gizmodo, and when I was at Engadget, and now at GDGT, but I mean, there are a lot of sites and publications and really smart people that don't get to go. So I mean, it's neat, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah, I guess you probably feel the same way, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, it's a long day. It's I mean, I still totally get that sort of like kid at Christmas, like, ooh, what's going to happen? Excitement. But yeah. Like,
Thanks for spoiling that for me, Jason.
yeah, whatever.
I'm very sorry.
But like, I'll sleep pretty well tonight.
Finally
Finally.
sleep. See, I was telling Jason, like, I don't mind knowing that I'm getting a train for Christmas because, like, then I get to think, oh, what kind of a train? What does it do?
What am I going to do with this train after I get it?
Yeah, but that's
Start planning.
But that's me. That's just the way I am. I enjoy things like cheat codes. I like getting to the end before I put in the work. I like the shortcut.
You read the last page of the mystery book novel before you start.
Shit, yeah, I do. I would watch, I would have watched the last episode of Lost first and been like, oh, okay, they all go to heaven. I don't need to see this.
You could have told me I could have saved those 2 hours. That's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, that's not.
That's a whole nother angry.
Spoiler alert.
Uh-oh. Did I say heaven? I meant they go to a Heaven 17 concert, a band from the 1980s. Right?
Yeah.
No?
Good 17 of them go to that.
That's right.
Oh.
They were chosen.
Well, speaking from my point of view, it felt kind of weird not being there after being
Yeah, I'm
invited.
sure.
It felt, I don't want to say bad, but it felt, I was kind of nervous about what we're going to do, how good a job we were going to do, but you guys did a fantastic job and kind of jumped on your guys' back this time. So thank you for that. But it made me realize that these things are kind of fun. And they are work, and they are kind of central to our jobs day to day, but it is kind of it's still a privilege to be able to go.
I mean, I remember a time, and this was I think before you were at Gizmodo, but I mean when we couldn't count on going to an Apple keynote when it wasn't open online, like there were no online, it was only print and broadcast, and we would have to fight tooth and nail every single time to get somebody in, and a lot of times we wouldn't get somebody in, so we'd have to somehow convince one of our friends in broadcast or print or an analyst or something to send us live reporting, right? And so we could post it on Engadget. I mean, it was a very, very different time, and so now obviously I think it can be kind of easy to take these events for granted, especially when they are a lot of work. But I mean, I think there's also something really refreshing about kind of being on the outside again, and just kind of doing your own thing.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I wouldn't change anything, and I wouldn't take it back. But it was interesting being on the outside again, and looking in and seeing kind of the themes of the presentation and what things went right and what things went wrong.
Yeah.
Well, I see. I mean, you guys live in this world way more than I do. I mean, I'm
We're just a tourist here.
Well, I mean, in a way, I've sort of been like I feel like I'm kind of an extended house guest in this sector. I mean, I do get to review stuff, but it's not. I mean, it's maybe like once a week on Attack. It's not like it's not like I'm seeing the volume of stuff that you guys see, and I'm not going to every one of these conferences. I'm just kind of going to the biggest ones, whether it be CES or WWDC or E3
or those two,
or any of the other Apple
announcements.
And so I still get kind of excited about just the prospect of it, and even I sort of look forward to that excitement almost as much as the actual thing itself. And I always feel a little like after it's over, like, what do we got to look forward to now?
FaceTime. That's what you have to look forward to.
I had thought, there were a couple weeks, because I know obviously a lot of people are going to be like, Verizon! And there were a few weeks where it looked pretty good. Oh, someone from Verizon said there's an ad company, and they're making ads for the blah, blah, blah. And then it was a complete 180, I feel like. It trended completely the opposite the last kind of week, where it was like, no, we're not doing that, and that's not going to happen now. And, is it because Apple has this 2012 deal with AT&T, or does anyone really know, or we just know that it didn't get announced?
Well, we know that they have that deal, so they can't cancel it before.
Well, I mean, there are always ways to get out of a deal, right? They could say that AT&T has not fulfilled its contractual obligations by providing such poor service to its customers.
Wish that I could.
I mean, yeah, exactly.
So AT&T would charge Apple what is it?
An early
termination fee.
Yeah,
that's all. What is it, like $375 now or something?
Right. Except they would add like 4 zeros to that, 8 zeros.
Oh shit!
To that.
Oh well.
I don't think that it was like, we're going to change up our program. I mean, with a phone for them is going to take between 12 and 24 months to build. Once they start that train, it doesn't stop for anything.
Right.
And once it's done and ready, it goes out. So it's not like they spent the last 18 months and God knows how many millions of dollars and how many engineers, building a Verizon phone just to be like, well, I don't know, kind of spoil a message right now. Let's wait. Let's sit on this for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if they were doing it, we would have known about it this time. And if they're going to have it ready for the next one, then we'll know about it next time.
Do you really think it is just? Do you really think it is just the network? Do you think that Verizon's going to realize, oh, maybe this wasn't such an easy device to carry after all? I mean, because I feel like now people have built it up. I feel like people have built it up to this thing where, it's going to go to Verizon and then everything's going to be perfect.
I think it's about the commitment of the company. Actually, I mean, AT&T was they're presented with an astounding problem, and that is a ridiculous amount of data where they didn't have a ridiculous amount of data before, and they responded by not doing anything. Basically, I mean, in the major markets, they haven't done anything. I think that. And you can actually look at this if you go back to their quarterly investment in dollars over the last 7 years in build out of network infrastructure and purchase of spectrum and stuff like that. They lag behind the competition significantly. And you look at Verizon; they're the number one spender in build out of network infrastructure and purchase of spectrum. So I think it's really it's about the commitment. If Verizon was given this very high class problem of needing to deal with the flood of traffic from iPhone customers, I think that they would do it. They would deal with it.
There's something with AT&T where they're like, fuck, by the time we fix this, our thing's going to be expired, everyone's going to be gone anyway. But you would think that they would still want to preserve, the company and try to make it as powerful as possible.
But I mean, you're totally right that you get a sort of, how do you balance the huge cost of investing to solve this problem with probably your clear vision that when your exclusive is up, you are unlikely to see it renewed. I mean, it's like, how much am I going to build it out? I mean,
well, I think
all of us would like.
But isn't it kind of chicken and egg? Because if you're spending and investing to get it built out, then there's a higher likelihood that it's going to be renewed.
It is chicken and egg, but I guess especially on the time horizon now, like in 2 years they can't get it to where.
Maybe they've done the math and said, okay, even if we build it out, we're not going to make any more money from.
My feeling though is that smartphones are not going backwards. Like they're going, like phones are going to try to out data hog each other in the coming years, and so why not be prepared for whatever that next thing is. Like it's not like the iPhone isn't the only phone that consumes data. There's other, and they're all doing that.
But
so,
I mean, people are going to have a reality check before too long. And Ryan said something earlier about Spectrum when we were talking about the Wi-Fi at Moscone. It's like, it isn't like you just keep adding more cell towers and more. Like, at a certain point, a piece of spectrum is done. It is tapped out, it is over. And, I mean, we aren't there, but we are not as far as... It isn't like...
I think pimps call that a broke hoe.
Right. So the broke hoe of the cellular industry, is not decades off. It's years off. And I think a lot of people think, like, if there were more cell towers and bigger pipes running to the cell towers, everything would be fine. And that's not actually, it's not quite that easy. This is not to say I'm happy with AT&T, because I am not.
AT&T is a broco.
There's your headline.
Yeah.
AT&T broke hoe, news at 11.
It's all within your reach.
So I guess ultimately, do you think you're going to get it when it comes out, June 24th? Are you going to get it, Ryan?
I think so. Yeah.
Mark?
Yes, I'm going to get it.
Jason?
I mean,
We shall see. I'll see if I get my stuff back first.
Do you think you're going to walk into an Apple store and it's going to say, do not sell to this guy?
The question for Jason is, will you get another?
Hey, you know what? I'll tell you something. Even if your phone isn't subsidized, it'll still be cheaper than the last one you bought.
That is true.
That's true.
Jeez.
But I you know, what? You're not allowed to. Come on.
It's brutal.
Why is that brutal?
No, it's a good line.
No, Did that cross?
No.
Okay,
It's
all right.
perfectly fine.
Okay.
It was Denton's money, not my money.
Because I love you, Jason.
Yeah,
We're buds.
of course.
Come on, guys. Let's tell the story about how we sit around the campfire and that one guy won the hiding competition and threw up a lot. Stand by Me. It was,
Right, gotcha.
a movie with Will Wheaton and the late River Phoenix. I'm probably definitely going to get it, just because I feel like it's my job.
There's a little bit of a hedge in there. Probably, definitely.
Well, I'm thinking ahead, and I'm like, well, I don't want to stand in line for it because the lines are going to be insane.
No, it's all about the
pre-order.
The pre-order. Did you stand in line for your iPad?
No.
I had a nice UPS man just bring me 2 iPads to my house. I have them at noon. It was just like, why did I ever stand in line?
I literally had the luck of I just kind of walked into the Apple store and was like, "Do you have any 4 gig 3G app?" And they're like, "We have one left." And and then that was it. So that was the luck.
Wow.
That was the luck that I had. Probably shouldn't push that.
If you also get a sitcom on NBC, you can get one sent to you.
You mean like Olivia Munn?
Like I was
Like Mikhail.
Oh, Mikhail. Yeah. Oh, that fucking guy. Man, we were doing a show in Kentucky last year, and I flew in through Indianapolis, and so I went to a mall in Indianapolis and stood in line at the Apple store in Indianapolis, and I get to the show the night, and I'm like, "Look who's got a 3G iPhone," and he's like, "They already sent me one of those. I don't even care. I just leave it on the nightstand." I'm like, "Fuck
I wish everybody could see your
in
body
the
language when you
face.
do your Mikhail impersonation. It was awesome.
Well, you know what it is? He's so tall that I have to like look. My space work is that I'm looking down at
everybody.
me,
Upon yourself.
who's tiny compared to Joel. Like I look like one of the hobbits trying to scale an ent, like next to Joel. Like I feel like I should just climb on and be like, "Head for Mordor!" And then he'll just walk and talk about what the forest used to be like. But so Joel is on the list. That super short list of people who get shit.
Someday, Chris. Someday.
Maybe not after this podcast. After they log everything, and you're like, no,
16 derogatory
Well, not for
mentions.
Mikhail now too. Now that you outed him.
Well, can I give you a pro tip? If you have a podcast, there's probably a good chance you're not going to be.
Yeah, that's true. But you know what? I feel like I probably shouldn't get one. I feel like I shouldn't get one because, you know, if I write for Wired and I review stuff on Attack of the Show, I probably shouldn't get a free iPhone because I already get accused enough of fanboyism, and I don't get shit from them. So I think it's better that they don't send me one because it would be a serious moral dilemma, an ethical dilemma of whether or not I should keep it.
Yeah, plus it's like, you know, you have to go through this big ethical dilemma. Do you keep the phone? Do you not keep the phone? I mean, you already have to deal with the fact that they send you paychecks every week for pimping their shit all the time.
Exactly. Whoa, wait, what? Did I just admit that? You know, Apple loves to dish out money to people.
Yeah.
They fucking love it. Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for coming by my hotel room. And Ryan Black at GDGT or Gadget.com, Mark McCluskey for Wired Magazine, Jason Chen for Gizmodo. I hope you guys ultimately really did have a fun experience overall. And that, I mean, it's still not to be all Pollyanna about it, but it still should be kind of fun. I mean, we like this stuff, and it's fun that we get to get paid to fuck around with it.
Yeah, totally.
So hopefully we're not too burned out yet to still appreciate it.
Not yet.
By the way, would you like some Skippy?
Oh, no, I'm fine. I carry my own chip.
You took that a lot better than I thought you would.
Yeah. I'm trying to work on my anger issues.
FaceTime.
Now leaving Nerdist.com.